Our affirmation for our message is, I let go of the limits of ego and patiently play my role as a limitless spirit. And indeed, we are all limitless spirits. And that's a wonderful reality to hold on to. And it is Easter Sunday. And this may veer a little bit from what we usually talk about on Easter, but today we're going to talk about the ego, which is really interesting because probably a lot of us, I know me back when I was in high school, when I took the basic psychology class, we learned about ego. And of course, the talk about that is much different than what I'm going to talk about today. And then, of course, when I was in college, we talked about it a little bit, but mostly I was really upset. I thought Pavlov was pretty mean to those poor dogs, making them starve until the bell rang. But anyways, along with that comes the idea that we need to be patient. And for some of us, that is so challenging to know that we are these perfect spiritual and divine children of God, and we may see that there is lack or limit or something in our life that we need resolved, and it's not happening in our time. And to be patient and to sit back and know that indeed our spirit is limitless, but that we must patiently play out that role of being a limitless spirit. And one of the things that makes us so eager for things to come along and makes it difficult for us to be patient, well, in addition to living in this modern world where, we now can pick up our phone and have a car at our curb in 5 minutes to take us where we need to go, and all the wonderful things that come along with living in this modern world, these are things that indeed go along with ego. And ego, as we all probably learned when we were young, as I did, ego is the thing within us. And we may think of ego as the arrogant side of us, or people who have a big ego, or me being my human self, and sometimes will be passive aggressive and say, well, that person doesn't have any ego challenges. But when we think about ego, the ego is the id within us. It's the thing within us, and it has been created over the lifetime of things that we have learned. And unfortunately, in this process, we have learned to put limitations on this. We've learned to live in this box. We've learned about things that we can't do instead of all the things we can do. And so, of course, in New Thought, as New Thought students, we know that indeed we are limitless. We are limitless spirits. And if we patiently wait, all things come to us. All things that are meant to come to us, they do. And those are all these wonderful things as we open our service every Sunday and affirm that we are indeed perfect, spiritual, and divine. We need to know that this ego in us, we need to work on breaking down these walls, breaking down these limits, letting go of all the things within us that say that, you know what, I am confined to what I can do by what I see as the balance in my checkbook. I am confined to what I can do by what the doctor says my diagnosis is. I am confined to what I can do because maybe somebody that I love doesn't say they love me back. All these things that we allow to box us in and to make our ego this little thing within us, when indeed we are actually limitless spirits. And so this is a good time as we think about Christ and the resurrection. Certainly at the time, Christ was placed in this tomb. He was placed in this small place, and all of his followers who were so saddened and upset. And we read further that the next morning when Mary Magdalene went to the tomb, as was the custom back in those days for people to go and make sure there were no tomb robbers or nothing untoward had happened during the night, and saw that indeed the stone was rolled away and there was nobody in the tomb. And of course, part of her fear was that somebody had come and taken him away. And then, of course, he eventually appears to her and makes himself known to her. And so we see that Christ wasn't limited at all. He wasn't limited by this death, by this box that he was put in, or this tomb that he was put in. He knew that he was a limitless spirit. This is one of the reasons that we, especially in New Thought, we think of Christ as the Wayshower. He is the Wayshower because he taught us so much. He taught us so much about love and peace and about our ability to do things. And we know that when we read through the Gospels, and I always encourage everybody, I know the Bible can be a big, thick thing, but actually, you know what? When you look at it, the New Testament part is really a smaller part. And even in that, the Gospels are even shorter. And the Gospels are the great thing to start with because, of course, all the others are different letters that Paul wrote to the different churches established. But just reading the Gospels, if you give yourself that, even just once a quarter to read one of the Gospels and read about the wonderful, wonderful lessons and teachings that Christ gave in his time here in this earthly form that he kept, this is a wonderful way to know that indeed we are capable of so much more than we think, so much more than our ego tells us, because of what everybody in the world around us told us as we were growing up. And so, as part of our message, we have a goal this week, and hopefully everybody gets to take an opportunity to take some time to be a little meditative, a little prayerful. So, this week, as you're going through the process of living your daily life, as you're looking at your checkbook, as you're checking your health, as you're dealing with your family and your loved one, examine the limits of your ego. And a lot of these are so self-imposed. They're self-imposed only in that they are there because of what we've heard from other people, our parents, our teachers, people around us. And so we put ourselves in this box. So examine the limits that you've imposed on your ego that have been placed by a lifetime of learned behaviors, and sit back and patiently rest in expectancy as you begin to see the signs of life unfolding more miraculously than you ever dreamed, because we all are entitled to lives of great happiness and great health and great prosperity. And of course, it bears saying that that's something different for everybody. What is my perfect, spiritual, divine, happy, healthy, prosperous life is possibly completely different than yours. But the underlying thing is the happiness that is there. We are meant to lead lives of happiness because we know that we are created in the image of God, and God is perfect, and therefore we are perfect. And just as Christ arose on this day that we celebrate, we too can arise from the limitations that we have imposed on ourselves, and we can go forth and do great things and live great lives of happiness. We don't have to be hemmed in by feelings of lack or limit, or feelings of poor health, or feelings of lack of peace inside, or a lack of love around us, because it's all there for us. It's all there for us. When we crash aside the gates or these limits that are around this ego that's within us, we can, of course, begin to live these lives of greatness. And of course, like anything, it's a learned behavior. It took you a long time to learn to place these limits on yourself. So it's going to take a long time to learn to let those gates down and to let yourself be this person who is not confined by anything other than your own limitations, because God meant for you to live a life of great happiness, great health, great prosperity, and great loving relationships and everything that you do. So that is where the patience part comes in. And we know as people, especially living in a modern era, how challenging it is to be patient. I was commenting earlier how lazy I felt this year because we could buy the eggs to hide for the children. They were pre-stuffed. I didn't even have to stuff the eggs this year. And we have some eggs because everybody likes, you know what, for the Easter holiday, isn't it wonderful to have some colored, some dyed eggs? I bought them in the store. They were pre-dyed, but they're still hard-boiled eggs. But I mean, no, we do. We live in this instant world, but we have to understand that changing what's inside of us and allowing this greatness that God has in mind for us, that's going to take some time, because it took you a long time to get there, so it's going to take you a long time to undo that. But this life of limitless spirit is yours to live. Always, always. And the good news is, because of course we are the Good News Church, and all things New Thought are good news. The good news is that we have been created as limitless spirits. A lifetime of exposure to words and deeds of lack, limit, doubt, and low expectancy have created walls and limitations in our own egos, which really do not exist in the divine world. The limitless life divine spirit has given us is waiting It's waiting. It's there. It's there. Tap into this wondrous life of limitlessness of spirit, which the divine is meant for you. Just as our Wayshower, Jesus the Christ, arose from his tomb, we too can accomplish all the Wayshower did and more. Free the limits of the ego. Relax and patiently await all the good which divine spirit has for you. This is the good news that Christ shared with us and meant for us to utilize in our lives each and every day and in each and every way. So as you go forth, and Monday's coming, and it's a whole new springtime is here. This is a wonderful time to reevaluate and think of all the things that hold you back. Think of all the things that you may have learned as a child about what you can't do. And slowly, because it'll take time, release those limitations. Release those limitations and know that they aren't real. They aren't real because you have imposed them on you because of what you've learned. And of course, that's not your fault. It's what we do. I mean, you probably know your multiplication tables because you learned that in school. And so there's good things that we learn, but there's also things that we learn that aren't useful to us anymore in life. And we need to know that indeed we are limitless spirits. And we need to embrace that every day in every way. So as you look in the mirror tomorrow morning, as you're combing your hair or brushing your teeth and you're getting ready to start your day, know that say to yourself, I am a limitless spirit, and I am going to go forth, and I am going to have a life of great happiness, great health, and great prosperity, and great loving relationships every day in every way. And know that to be true. And slowly those walls around your ego, which limit you, will fade away, and you will experience all the greatness that Christ had in mind for you, as well as divine spirit. All right, I'd like to invite everyone to join me in prayer now. Eternal and loving God, we thank you so much for allowing us to come together this day and to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus the Christ, the Wayshower. We thank you for having sent this wonderful man to show us the way, to let us know that divine spirit is with us and within us to guide us and direct us. We thank you, Lord, for allowing us to learn. And we thank you for allowing us to unlearn all those things that are holding us back from the magnificent life that we know that you have intended for us. We thank you for this, Lord, every day in every way. We thank you in the name of faith, in the name of hope, and in the name of love. Amen.